The sun hung high over the rolling hills of northern Minnesota, like a benevolent overseer, bathing the landscape in a golden haze that turned the air to liquid warmth. It was July 15, 2025, peak of the growing season, when the days stretched long and lazy, coaxing every green shoot from the earth with relentless generosity. Anna Ramirez stepped out onto the porch of their modest two-story homestead, the wooden boards creaking under her boots as she inhaled the heady perfume of sun-warmed soil and blooming milkweed. At 43, she was a compact force of nature. 5 feet 3 inches of wiry muscle honed from years of teaching martial arts to wide-eyed students in the nearby town of Bemidji. Her dark hair, streaked with early silver from her native heritage, part Ojibwe, passed down through her mother's stories of wild rice harvests and spirit walks, was pulled back in a practical braid that swung like a pendulum as she moved. Her sharp brown eyes, flecked with amber, scanned the horizon out of habit, tracing the undulating line where the earth met the sky, searching for anomalies in the familiar landscape, a deer too bold in the alfalfa, a hawk circling the chicken run. This was her sanctuary, her fortress disguised as a farm. 30 acres of wooded seclusion, ringed by a towering 15-foot brick wall she'd built herself over the course of 2 relentless summers. The wall wasn't just for show. It was born from her prepper soul, those late-night daydreams of homesteading turning into meticulous plans etched in notebooks and spreadsheets. Zombies lurching through the streets, economic collapse grinding society to a halt, solar flares wiping out the grid. She'd spun tales of them all in her mind while weeding rows or kneading dough, her imagination a double-edged sword that both thrilled and terrified her. Beside her, Jess Harlan lumbered out, all 6 feet 3 inches of him in a faded chambray shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows and cargo shorts that revealed calves tanned from weekend hikes. At 50, he was a steady counterpoint to her whirlwind energy, an office drone by trade, crunching numbers for a forestry company in Bemidji until the 5 p.m. whistle blew him free to this quieter life. He'd never thrown a punch in his life, never dreamed of apocalypses beyond what Anna whispered about over dinner, her voice low and fervent as she described bunker blueprints or water filtration hacks. But he enabled her every whim without question, hauling bags of cement for the wall under the relentless July sun, installing the solar panels that hummed quietly on the south-facing roof like a chorus of contented bees, even helping stock the root cellar with enough freeze-dried strawberries, kin venison, and mylar-sealed rice to outlast a biblical flood. It was his way of loving her, practical, unflashy, like the way he left her favorite mug of iced tea sweating on the nightstand each morning. "Morning, love," he rumbled, his voice gravelly from sleep and the faint rasp of a lifetime spent indoors under fluorescent lights. He planted a kiss on her forehead, lingering just a second longer than usual, as if the humid air had made him sentimental. Their 2 large dogs, Kodiak and Luna, massive German shepherd mixes with coats like burnished copper in the sunlight, bounded down the weathered pine steps ahead of them, tails wagging in broad arcs as they sniffed the air for rabbits that darted through the underbrush. Kodiak, the elder at 7, led with a purposeful trot, his scarred muzzle lifted high. Luna, the playful 2-year-old, darted sideways to chase a butterfly, her energy undimmed by the rising heat.
The homestead stirred to life around them, a symphony of small sounds breaking the midday hush. Chickens clucked in their reinforced coop, a squat structure of chain-link fencing and reclaimed barn wood that Anna had fortified against coyotes, foxes, and the hypothetical hordes of her nightmares. The 12 Rhode Island red hens she'd raised from chicks scratched at the sun-baked earth inside. Their red combs vivid against the dust, they kicked up in search of grubs and spilled grain. Further afield, the cows, 3 sturdy Holsteins named Bess, Clover, and Daisy after the wildflowers that dotted the pasture in riotous color, lowed softly from the eastern field, their black and white hides glossy with summer sweat as they grazed on knee-high timothy grass. Anna's garden sprawled to the south like a living quilt, vibrant and demanding. Raised beds bursting with zucchini the size of forearms, kale leaves broad as dinner plates waving in the breeze, carrots thrusting feathery tops toward the sky, and heirloom tomatoes swelling fat and red on trellises she'd woven from willow branches. It provided much of their food through the growing season. Beans snapped fresh and pressure-canned in quart jars that lined the pantry shelves like soldiers at attention, potatoes hillied in mounds of straw to keep the skins tender. She'd already harvested the first wave that morning, a colander of snap peas pod plump and sweet, garlic scapes curled like fiddleheads for pesto. Self-sufficiency wasn't a hobby for Anna. It was her religion, a creed whispered in the pages of her 3,000-plus Kindle ebooks, downloaded onto her rugged tablet during marathon sessions fueled by black tea and paranoia. From The Forager's Harvest to Advanced Wound Care in Austere Environments, each file was a talisman against the unknown, her digital arsenal as vital as the blades she kept oiled and sharp. "Let's get the milking done before the heat peaks," Anna said, grabbing a galvanized metal pail from the hook by the door, its handle warm from the sun already. The weight of it grounded her, a tangible reminder of the cycle she'd woven into their lives. Jess nodded, slinging a second pail over his arm, larger than hers, dented from a mishap with the tractor last spring, as they trudged toward the barn. The path wound through the front yard, past the open wrought iron gate that served as their only concession to the outside world. It was wide enough for a delivery truck laden with feed sacks, pretty enough for the occasional visitor dropping by with a loaf of community bake sale bread, though out here on this forgotten gravel road, 10 miles from the nearest paved highway, visitors were rarer than rain in August. The gate's black bars curled in ornate flourishes, a salvaged antique from an estate sale in Grand Rapids, left ajar most days in case the mailman from the rural route decided to brave the ruts. The rest of the property was sealed tight. Motion sensor cameras dotted the wall's perimeter like vigilant sentinels, linked to their home network via Starlink's unblinking satellite eye overhead. No spotty cell service to speak of in this pocket of the North Woods, but internet? That they had, courtesy of the constellation of satellites beaming data from the void, keeping Anna's tablet alive with forums on permaculture and Jess's guilty pleasure streams of old westerns when the nights grew short. The barn loomed ahead, a red-sided behemoth of post and beam construction, its roof venting heat through gable louvers that Anna had added last year to combat the swelter. Inside, the air was thicker, heavy with the earthy scent of hay bales stacked like golden bricks in the loft, mingled with the sharper tang of fresh manure and the sweet undernote of fermented silage in the troughs. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light piercing the high windows, and the cows shifted in their stalls, hooves scraping softly on the straw-strewn floor, flies buzzing in lazy circuits. Bess was first, as always, docile and heavy with udder, her flanks rising and falling in calm rhythm. She stood patiently in the stanchion as Anna latched the hinged bar across her neck, the wood creaking familiarly under her hands. Settling onto the low three-legged stool, its seat worn smooth from years of use, Anna leaned into the task, her hands moving with the practiced rhythm of muscle memory. Fingers wrapped around the teats, squeezing from base to tip in a steady tattoo, forefinger and thumb first, then the rest, pulling downward with just enough force to coax the milk free without bruising. Thin white arcs streamed into the pail, frothing slightly at the bottom and filling the barn with a rhythmic patter that echoed off the rafters. It was meditative work, this milking, time to let the mind wander while the body labored. Anna's thoughts drifted to the e-book she'd skimmed last night, Artisan Cheesemaking at Home, its pages promising wheels of aged cheddar that could mellow for a year in the cool darkness of the cellar. This batch would be perfect for it, full cream from the summer flush, rich and golden. Jess handled Clover beside her, his larger hands clumsier but gentle, the milk splashing more than streaming into his pail until a dollop frothed over the rim. Anna shot him a teasing glance over Bess's broad back, her lips quirking in that half-smile that always softened her edges. "Easy there, big guy. We're not making a frappé for the End Times Cafe, just cheese that'll keep us smiling through the lean months." He chuckled, a deep rumble that vibrated through the stall divider, wiping his brow with the back of his sleeve, sweat beading on his forehead from the exertion and the loft's rising humidity. Milking wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and in moments like this, it knit them closer. "This batch for the aging shelves, then? Gouda this time? You were talking about that Dutch recipe," smoked over applewood. Anna nodded, her braids swaying as she switched sides, the pail now half full and sloshing gently. Aged cheddar first, needs that sharp tang to cut through winter stews. Then Gouda if the cultures hold. I've got rennet and mesophilic starter in the fridge from the co-op run last month. The cream will separate out overnight in the settling pans. Skim the top for Alfredo sauce, maybe a batch of ice cream if we feel fancy. Freeze dry the rest. Those pouches stack like bricks in the bunker. Separating the cream was a ritual they'd perfected over 3 years. Once milked, they'd strain it through cheesecloth into wide stainless steel pans in the kitchen, let it sit overnight in the cool basement air where the temperature hovered at a steady 55 degrees, thanks to the geothermal exchanger Jess had jury-rigged. By morning, a golden cap of cream would float atop, thick as velvet, whipped into butter flecked with sea salt from her bulk stores, or simmered into sauces that clung to homemade pasta like a lover's embrace. The skim milk below, curdled with rennet from her veterinary surplus, pressed into molds lined with muslin, and aged on cedar boards in the cellar's shadows. It was wasteful not to preserve, every drop a buffer against the chaos she half expected, half hoped for in her quieter moments. Her tablet, tucked in the pocket of her overalls, held the blueprints, step-by-step guides with photos of wax-coated wheels and troubleshooting charts for off-flavors. Knowledge was her sharpest blade, downloaded in bulk during sales and quiet evenings, when the crickets chorused outside. Daisy was last, the youngest and most skittish of the trio, her tail swishing like a metronome as Jess coaxed her into the stanchion with a handful of alfalfa pellets. Anna took over, her touch firmer, murmuring low Ojibwe words her grandmother had taught her, greetings to the 4 directions, a prayer for bounty, as the milk flowed freer under her hands. The cows were more than livestock. They were partners in this dance of survival, their warm flanks a living testament to the land's generosity. Bess had calved last spring, a bullock they'd named Thunder and later processed into ground beef that filled the freezer in neat white paper wraps. Clover's milk was the creamiest, destined for soaps and lotions Anna bartered at the farmer's market. Daisy. She was the future, heavy with calf again come fall. By the time the pails brimmed, 8 gallons total, steaming faintly in the humid air, the sun beat down fiercer, haze shimmering off the metal roofs. Jess hauled his load to the house first, muscles bunching under his shirt as he navigated the uneven path, while Anna lingered to turn the cows out. She unlatched the pasture gate, whistling sharply for Kodiak and Luna, who herded the Holsteins with joyful efficiency, nipping at heels, barking in short bursts that sent the cows lumbering into the shade of the maples. Satisfied, Anna veered toward the garden, her domain of verdant chaos. The air hummed with bees, pollinators drunk on squash blossoms, and she knelt by the nearest bed, fingers sinking into the loamy soil as she inspected the tomatoes. Blossoms had set fruit overnight, clusters of green orbs promising abundance, and she pinched suckers with thumbnail precision, whispering encouragement in the old tongue. Weeding came next, a quick pass with the Japanese hoe, unearthing crabgrass and dandelions that went into the compost tumbler spinning lazily in the corner. The garden wasn't just plots of earth, it was a living larder, drip-irrigated from the rainwater cistern, mulched with straw from the barn to smother weeds and hold moisture. Broccoli heads unfurled like emerald cauliflowers, leeks thrust pale shafts from the rows, enough to seed the fall planting and fill dehydrators humming in the shed. She'd freeze-dried much of the spring haul already, strawberries crumbling to ruby powder, peas shelled and bagged in vacuum seals. Canned items lined the shelves below, tomatoes in their own juice, dilly beans with garlic from the bulbs she'd braided to hang in the rafters. 6 months, minimum. More if they culled the herd judiciously. It was enough, she told herself. It had to be. She gathered a final handful of herbs, basil leaves bruised between her fingers, releasing their spicy perfume, before heading to the chicken run next door. A wire-enclosed dome of aviary netting over the coop allowed the birds to forage without wandering into the woods where bobcats prowled. 12 hens today, scratching at the sun-hot earth. She counted them twice, a habit born of loss after a fox raid 2 summers back. Gathering eggs into her wicker basket, warm speckled orbs still pulsing with life from the nests, She scattered fresh layer mash laced with crushed oyster shells for calcium. Routine wrapped around her like a familiar cloak. Tend the garden at midday, harvest what the sun ripens, preserve what the heat hastens to spoil. It was peace, hard-won and fragile, etched into the lines around her eyes from squinting at horizons both real and imagined. They converged in the kitchen as the clock ticked toward noon, the heart of the house, a spacious room with exposed beams overhead and a propane range that hissed efficiently beside the wood-fired cookstove for backup. Sunlight streamed through the reinforced windows Jess had upgraded last year, just in case, he'd said with a wink, though Anna knew it was for her peace of mind. The milk pails went onto the counter, strained through butter muslin into the waiting pans, and Anna set about portioning feed for the dogs, kibble mixed with scraps from last night's venison stir-fry, rich with zucchini from the garden. Jess poured tall glasses of sun tea from the jug steeping on the sill, the brew amber and tart with lemon balm she'd snipped that morning. It was these moments, the ordinary alchemy of chores, that anchored them. "Garden check after lunch?" Jess asked, handing her a glass, condensation beating cold between them. "Already did," Anna replied, sipping the herbal tang. "Tomatoes setting heavy. Might need to stake the vines tomorrow. And the kale's bolting. Time to harvest and dehydrate before it bitters." Her garden demanded daily devotion in July. Irrigation lines checked for clogs, pests scouted with neem sprays brewed from her recipes, soil tested with kits from the co-op. She'd succession-planted carrots for a fall pull, intercropped basil with the peppers to ward off aphids, technique straight from square-foot gardening on her tablet. The yield fueled their table. Salads tossed with foraged purslane, soups simmered with leeks and herbs, pies bursting with rhubarb from the patch by the porch. They were midway through separating the first pail, Anna skimming the nascent cream with a shallow ladle, Jess logging the yield in their ledger with a stub pencil, when it started. A low chime from the wall-mounted alert system pierced the domestic hum, insistent as a cicada's whine. Anna froze, ladle hovering mid-air, droplets of milk pattering onto the counter like misplaced rain. Jess fumbled for the radio on the windowsill, his chair scraping back with a jolt as the dogs lifted their heads in unison, ears pricked toward the sound. Static crackled through the speakers, a white noise prelude, then the automated voice of the emergency alert system cut through like a knife. "This is not a test. A national emergency has been declared. Violent civil unrest has escalated nationwide, with reports of widespread infections and aggressive behavior consistent with a contagious pathogen. Symptoms include fever, disorientation, and violent outbursts. All residents are ordered to shelter in place immediately. Do not open doors to strangers. Seal windows and vents. Conserve resources. Medical personnel and first responders report to designated stations if able. Stay tuned for further instructions from local authorities." The words hung in the air like humidity before a storm, thick and oppressive. Anna's pulse quickened, not with fear. Fear was for the unprepared, but with a grim vindication that coiled in her chest like a spring. The daydreams, the ones she'd spun during long drives home from the dojo, visions of shambling undead and crumbling cities, crashed into reality with the force of a thunderclap. Her hands, steady as ever, set the ladle down with deliberate calm, but inside, her mind raced through protocols. Water first, then power audit, weapons check. Jess's face paled beneath his stubble, his glass of tea forgotten as it sweated rings onto the butcher block. "Anna, what the hell is this? Infections? Like flu gone bad?" She was already moving, crossing to the sink to rinse her hands, the tap water a cool shock that sharpened her focus. "Worse than flu from the sound. Could be viral, bacterial, hell, bioweapon if the conspiracy boards are right." Her voice was steel, the instructor's tone that brooked no argument, honed from corralling black belts half her size. She dried her hands on a tea towel embroidered with wild rice patterns, a gift from her cousin in Red Lake, and turned to him, reading the tremor in his jaw. "Gates. We lock down before anything gets close." Jess nodded, the color draining further as he rose, his height suddenly seeming less an advantage and more a target. They burst out the back door together, the screen slamming behind them like a punctuation mark, dogs exploding into motion at their heels. Kodiaks bark a deep warning, Luna's higher and frantic. Boots crunched over the gravel path that skirted the wall's base, the homestead sprawling wide around them. Pasture to the east where the cows now grazed oblivious under the oaks, garden plots to the south alive with buzzing life, the house a sturdy Victorian they'd renovated beam by beam with bulletproof glass in every window and a root-cellar bunker dug 10 feet deep under the foundation. Most gates were already latched from habit, the barn's heavy swing of galvanized steel, the garden's chain link with its padlock hasp, the coop's wire doors clipped shut against the noonday patrol. But the front, the wide wrought-iron beauty that faced the empty road, its bars wrought with vines and leaves in a nod to the wildflowers Anna loved, yawned open, as it always did for the mailman who never came anymore, or the rare neighbor dropping tools borrowed for a fence mend. Jess sprinted ahead, his long legs eating ground in powerful strides, while Anna flanked the wall to the west, double-checking latches with quick tugs that tested the give of hinges and the bite of locks. The brick was solid under her gloved hands, hand-molded from local clay dug from the creek bed, mixed 2-to-1 with cement hauled from the depot in town, then fired in a makeshift kiln she'd cobbled from scavenged firebricks and a propane torch. 15 feet high, mortared tight as a drum, topped with shards of green glass embedded like jagged teeth for good measure. Impenetrable, or close enough to fool anything short of a tank. The electric wire at the base hummed faintly under her palm, solar-charged and ready to deliver 10,000 volts to whatever dared touch it. The dogs paced parallel, whining low in their throats, sensing the shift in the air, the acrid tang of Anna's adrenaline mingling with the honeysuckle on the breeze. Jess heaved the front gate shut with a metallic clang that echoed across the fields, the sound rolling like thunder in the sudden hush. The lock, a heavy Yale padlock chained through the bars, keyed to the ring on Anna's belt, clicked home under her fingers, final as a vault door. She punched a 4-digit code into the keypad mounted on the inner post, arming the system. Floodlights, sirens, the works if breached. Beyond the wall, the world was unnaturally still, as if the alert had sucked the life from it. No hum of distant traffic from Highway 71 to the south, no contrails scarring the pale sky overhead. Just the whisper of wind through the full-leaved maples that flanked the road, their branches heavy with summer green, and the faint, ominous quiet of a gravel lane that saw maybe one car a week, a delivery from Amazon or a lost tourist chasing lake views. Back inside, they barred the doors, thick oak slabs reinforced with steel deadbolts and crossbraces that Anna had installed during a just-in-case weekend, and gathered in the living room, the heart of their command center. The tablet glowed on the scarred pine coffee table, Starlink holding steady with 3 bars of signal, a lifeline to the unraveling world. Anna pulled up the ring cameras first, feeds flickering to life on the split-screen monitor mounted above the mantel. Front gate clear, cows milling unconcerned in the east pasture, west woods alive with dappled shadows but no heat signatures on the infrared overlay. "Power's out grid-wide," Jess muttered, fiddling with the hand-crank radio, its antenna extended like a periscope. Static hissed, then snippets. Quarantine zones in Minneapolis, reports from Duluth of attacks on first responders. He twisted the dial, chasing clarity. "Batteries full on the inverters?" "Generator." "Full," she confirmed, her voice an anchor as she synced the tablet to the larger screen, pulling up live feeds from news aggregators. BBC first, sterile headlines of "Pandemic Escalation," maps blooming red across the Midwest. Reuters followed, grainy footage from Chicago. Crowd surging not with protest but with something feral, bodies twisting in agony before rising to lunge. Fringe sites next, the ones her ebooks had taught her to cross-reference with a grain of salt. User-uploaded videos of shambling figures in tattered clothes, eyes milky and vacant, tearing into the living with hands that ended in ragged claws. Zombies. It was zombies, straight out of her wildest prepper fantasies, the ones she'd laughed off over beers with Jess, sketching crude maps on napkins. But real. Flesh and blood and rot, the pathogen turning neighbor against neighbor in a frenzy of bites and screams. Jess sank onto the leather couch, the springs groaning under his weight, rubbing his face with hands that trembled faintly. The dogs flanked him, heads on his knees, Luna whining softly as if to soothe. "What do we do, Anna? This is everywhere. The radio's saying roads are blocked. No one's getting through." She knelt before him on the hooked rug, wool dyed with onion skins and walnut hulls from her foraging guides, taking his hands in hers. Calloused from swords and soil, they steadied against his tremor, a bridge across the chasm opening beneath them. "We hold. We wait it out. Grid's down, but we've got solar arrays feeding the batteries. Enough for lights, pumps, the freezer running full tilt. Water from the well, hand-pumped if the electric fails. 6 months of food in the cellar, more if we ration the livestock smart. Cull 1 cow come fall, chickens laying steady through the molt. Gardens peaking now, zucchini for days, tomatoes ripening by the bushel. Succession crops for fall under the hoops. We've got the wall, the wire, the cameras. And me." Her lips curved, fierce and fond. "I've dreamed this 1,000 times, Jess. Scripted it like a damn movie. We're not surviving, we're thriving." He searched her eyes, finding the fire there amid the amber flecks, the unyielding core that had drawn him to her a decade ago at a county fair, where she disarmed a drunk with a wrist lock and a smile. Slowly, he nodded, exhaling a breath he hadn't known he held. The alert looped again on the radio, the voice droning about "avoid all contact" and "contagious via bodily fluids," but Anna tuned it out, methodically ticking off her mental checklist. Med kits in the bathroom, antibiotics, sutures, 4 fluids from vet surplus. Armory nook off the hall, the twin curvy swords, their Damascus blades etched with Celtic knots that locked hilts into a single devastating greatsword, balanced for spin and slash. The kukri machete, its hooked edge gleaming like a promise of swift endings, strapped to her thigh in training. And the 9mm Glock 19, mag full with hollow points, 400 rounds of 115 grain FMJ in the safe, cleaned weekly. She'd take first watch tonight, blades close, ears attuned to the night. Outside, the cicadas resumed their chorus, a deceptive veil of normalcy over the gathering storm. The homestead hunkered down, a bastion against the unraveling. For now, they were safe, 2 souls and their faithful beasts, woven into the land's fabric. For now, it was just them against the quiet, the alerts fading to echoes. But the cameras never lied. And as the afternoon wore on, shadows lengthening toward dusk despite the summer's grip, a flicker on the west feed caught Anna's eye, movement. Human shapes, 5 in number, distant but deliberate, trudging down the road like ghosts seeking shelter from the heat. The cicada's drone had faded into a tense hush by mid-afternoon, the July sun dipping lower in the sky, but still fierce enough to turn the air into a shimmering mirage over the gravel road. Inside the homestead, the living room had become a makeshift war room, the coffee table strewn with the detritus of preparation, Anna's tablet propped open to a satellite map of the county, its screen casting a blue glow on the scattered notepads filled with Jess's blocky handwriting, inventory lists for ammo, fuel, and feed. The wood stove in the corner stood cold, unnecessary in the summer swelter, but its iron bulk offered a psychological anchor, a reminder of winters they'd weathered together. Kodiak and Luna had abandoned their spots by the hearth for the cooler tile of the kitchen floor, tongues lolling as they panted in unison. Jess paced the length of the room, his shadow stretching long across the braided rug, while Anna sat cross-legged on the couch, eyes locked on the split-screen monitor. The Ring cameras fed a steady stream of feeds, front gate unmoving, pasture east a tableau of cows dozing under the oaks, garden south buzzing faintly with the infrared ghosts of bees. Starlink signal held at 3 bars, a defiant pulse against the blackout that had swallowed the grid hours ago. No hum from the well pump now, just the manual crank's echo in her memory. But the cameras stayed alive, their batteries sipping from the solar array like cautious drinkers. The alert had come at 11:47 a.m., sharp and unyielding, but the real fracture was in the hours since, the radio devolving from official broadcasts to garbled ham chatter, tales of highways clogged with abandoned cars and towns like Bemidji falling silent one by one. Anna had cross-referenced it all on her tablet, pulling from the e-books she'd curated like a digital doomsday library, Pandemic Preparedness by some ex-CDC wonk, Guerrilla Medicine for the gritty HouTOS. Bites transmitted the rage, they said, reanimation in minutes if untreated. Her stomach twisted not at the horror, but at the timeline. Summer's bounty rotting in the fields if society didn't reboot fast. The garden demanded hands now, tomatoes splitting on the vine, zucchini swelling to baseball size overnight, and the cow's milk would sour without daily processing. But lockdown meant lockdown. She'd ration the perishables, start a compost accelerator from her stores if needed. Jess paused by the window, peering through the reinforced glass at the empty road beyond the gate. Sweat beaded on his brow, not just from the heat but the helplessness gnawing at him. No planes overhead. Haven't heard a car since noon. It's like the whole damn world's holding its breath. Anna glanced up, her braid slipping over one shoulder. Breath or not, we're sealed. Walls holding, cameras show 0 breaches. We ride it out till dark, reassess at dawn. Her voice was even, the martial arts instructor's calm that could steady a class through a sparring frenzy, but inside, her prepper's mind churned. 400 rounds for the 9mm, blade sharpened to a whisper, 6-month stores that could stretch to 9 with the garden's yield. She'd dreamed this, scripted fallback after fallback, but the reality's weight pressed heavier than any imagined horde. A soft chime cut the air. The motion sensor on camera 4, west perimeter, the one camouflaged in the sumac thicket 50 yards out. Anna's hand shot to the mouse, clicking the feed to full screen. Infrared overlay bloomed, heat signatures resolving into forms on the road, distant at first, like smudges on a watercolor. 4, no, 5 if the shadows told true, moving with purpose against the haze. The lead pair were men, broad and deliberate, bracketing a third figure whose outline sagged between them, right leg trailing like dead weight. A woman trailed the group, her silhouette rounded at the midsection, steps measured and protective, one arm cradling her belly. They were armed, outlines suggesting sidearms at hips, but no shambling frenzy, just exhaustion etched in slumped shoulders. "Survivors," Jess murmured, leaning in close enough that Anna caught the faint scent of his sun tea on his breath. "Not infected. Look at the formation, covering flanks." Anna nodded, zooming the lens. The hidden camera, Cam 5, a fisheye tucked in the oak's crotch, wired back to the hub with fiber optic she'd buried herself, caught the fifth, prone in the roadside ditch, rifle shouldered, scope sweeping the tree lean in slow arcs. Sniper's perch, straight from the field manuals she'd devoured. Her pulse ticked up, not fear but assessment. Pros, not raiders. And the hats, faded caps with gold-embroidered eagles and crossed rifles, visible now as the group drew nearer. Army vets. Trust wasn't blind, but it was a crack in the door. The group reached the gate's curve, pausing in a loose huddle. The injured man's head lolled, but his companions scanned the wall with practiced eyes, testing the brick's height, probing for weak seams, the woman's gaze lingering on the garden's green promise visible through the bars. Anna's finger hovered over the intercom button, linked to the camera's speaker. Risk reward, 5 mouths to feed, but 5 guns to bolster the line. Her e-books echoed, alliances in isolation were lifelines, vetted slow. She keyed the mic, voice projecting calm authority through the grill. "You folks okay out there? Looks like your friend's hurting bad, leg wound." The group startled, heads snapping up. The sniper in the ditch froze, barrel twitching skyward before lowering. One of the upright men, tall, weathered face under a salt and pepper buzz cut, stepped forward, hands raised palm out. "Ma'am, we're not here for trouble. Name's Brady. This here's Mike, took a gash from a biter back in Grand Rapids. We're just passing through, looking for a breather." Anna watched their faces on the split screen. Brady's steady, the other man's, younger, jaw set like granite, scanning for traps. The pregnant woman hovered protective, her free hand on a holstered pistol. "Got eyes on your overwatch," Anna continued, tone even. Rifle in the ditch. If your friend's willing to show himself, empty hands, we've got a med kit and a hot meal waiting. No strings, yet. Silence stretched, broken only by the wind rustling the sumac. Then a low whistle from the treeline. The sniper rose slow, M4 slung barrel down, cap tugged low over eyes shadowed by fatigue. For now visible, fifth joining, lean build, mid-30s, movements fluid despite the dirt-streaked fatigues. They conferred in murmurs, Brady nodding final. Appreciate it. We're clean, no bites on us. What's the play? Gate codes one time, 0715. Enter single file, hands where we see him. Drop packs at the line, we'll search. No sudden moves. Anna punched the override on the keypad, the lock solenoid whirring open. The gate swung inward on oiled hinges, a metallic sigh in the heat. Jess shifted beside her, hand drifting toward the shotgun leaning by the door. His, a 12-gauge pump with buckshot loads she'd taught him to cycle. You sure? Could be a Trojan. Vets, not psychos. And desperate, see the limp? If they're lying, blades are faster than bullets up close. She rose, buckling the kukri to her hip, the leather sheath a familiar weight. The twin swords stayed racked. This was vetting, not combat. Cover me from the porch. Dogs on heel. The group filed in as the chime confirmed entry. Brady first, Pack shrugged off at the gravel line, hands loose. Then the younger man, Jeb, he'd grunt later, mirror image, cap identical to his brother's. Daniel, the injured Mike's bearer, eased his charge down gentle, Mike's face ashen under stubble, pant leg shredded and dark with blood. Last the woman, Monica, eyes wary but softening at the garden sight, hand never leaving her belly. The gate clanged shut behind, relocking with a beep. Anna met them at the porch steps, 9mm holstered visible on her belt, stance balanced, feet shoulder width, weight forward, ready for draw or dodge. Kodiak and Luna flanked her, hackles subtle but up, low growls rumbling like distant thunder. Jess loomed behind, shotgun casual across his chest. Anna. This is Jess. Bag stay, health check first. Brady nodded, gesturing his team to ease down on the grass. Fair. Brady, retired sniper, 101st. This is Monica, my wife. Daniel, Jeb, brothers, Samos. Mike, he's the one needs you. Anna knelt by Mike, gloved hands efficient as she sliced the pant leg wider with a multi-tool. The wound was ugly, a ragged tear 4 inches long on the calf, puncture marks bracketing the gash, teeth, human from the spacing. Pus beaded yellow, but no black veins spidering up, no fever glaze in his eyes. Biter. Straggler in the ER lobby, Mike rasped, voice thin but lucid. Got him with the knife, but he clipped me. Been 4 hours, no turn. She probed gentle, eliciting a hiss but no spasm. Clean through, no bone hit. Lucky. Tetanus shot in the kit, hold still. From her hip pouch, always on her in drills, she pulled antiseptic wipes, irrigating the wound with saline from a squeeze bottle. The sharp scent of alcohol cut the air, mingling with the garden's earthiness. Stitches next, nylon thread on a curved needle, 9 precise throws to close the flap, butterfly closures for tension. Mike gritted through it, sweat sheening his brow, but his eyes stayed clear, tracking her work with sniper's focus. Bandage wrapped, gauze, vet wrap, secured tight, Anna sat back, stripping gloves. Antibiotics, cephalexin, 500 milligrams 4 times daily for 10 days. Got a stock for emergencies like this. She doffed a blister pack from the pouch, pressing it into his palm. Pain. Ibuprofen, 600 milligrams. Rest the leg, no wait for 48. Mike nodded, flexing fingers around the pills. Oh, you. Name's Mike, vet, 2. Scout recon. Her gaze shifted to Monica, who hadn't sat, hand rubbing circles on her belly. 7 months, Anna clocked, fundal height to the xiphoid, no swelling in the ankles. You next. Sit. Pull socks if you'll let me. Monica hesitated, glancing to Brady, who nodded. Monica. Home EC teacher, or was. Baby's due October, kicks like a mule. She eased onto the steps, lifting her shirt for the fetal Doppler Anna fetched from the house. Gel cold on skin, then the Wands probe, whoosh whoosh, steady 140 BPM, heartbeat strong as summer rain. Blood pressure cuff next, 110/70, perfect. You're solid. Dehydrated maybe, drink this. A Nalgene of electrolyte mix, laced with her homemade rehydration salts from the ebook Field Expedient Medicine. Brady watched hawk-eyed, but tension eased in his shoulders. You're set up like a forward operating base. Prepped. Anna's lips quirked. Dreamed it. Reality's messier. She stood, dusting knees. Meals stew, venison, garden veg. Inside, but bags get searched. House rules. The search was thorough but civil. Jess on packs, Anna on persons, pockets emptied, boots unlaced for blade checks. Sidearms, 4 Glocks, mags half full, sniper's M4 with ACOG scope, suppressor threaded. No contraband, just MREs crumbling from heat, a med pouch with sutures expired but sealed, dog tags clinking like talismans. Monica's pack yielded prenatal vitamins, a dog-eared ultrasound print, boy, 28 weeks. Inside, the kitchen enveloped them in cooler air, fans whirring on solar draw. The stew simmered on the propane stove, chunks of venison from last fall's cull, simmered with carrots and potatoes from the morning pull, thyme snipped fresh. Bowls steamed around the oak table, spoons clinking as hunger overtook caution. Mike propped his leg on a chair, color returning with each swallow. Monica ate slow, savoring the salt after days of scavenged tins. Conversation flowed halting, their path from Duluth, where the hospital had turned charnel house overnight, infected patients rising to overwhelm the halls. Brady and Jeb, brothers in arms and blood, had linked with Daniel after a convoy ambush on 53. Mike scouted ahead, Monica the glue holding frayed nerves. Colorado for Jeb's girl, a pipe dream now. Lines down, no word. Anna listened, parsing lies for tells. None came. Jess poured seconds, his office soft hands steady on the ladle. We're off-grid mostly. Solar, well, garden. Walls mine, bricks handmade. But 5's a crowd in a 2-bed. Daniel spoke then, voice gravel from disuse, eyes shadowed deeper than fatigue. Lost my wife, kids. Wreck on the interstate, panic drivers, first day. They were heading to me when... He trailed, spoon stilling. Jeb's hand clamped his shoulder, silent anchor. Sympathy knifed Anna, prepper or not, loss was universal. Rooms upstairs, bunk the guest, loft for the rest. But we talk terms. You're offering protection. Brady set his bowl down, empty. Sniper overwatch, shifts on the wall, quiet kills if biters wander. Scavenge runs if you point targets. We pull weight, chores, watches. In return, shelter, food, med. No taking, no leaving loaded. Jess caught Anna's eye across the table, his brow furrowed. The math. 5 guns against her 1 firearm, blades no match for volume. But vets, vetted clean, skill she'd need when the garden couldn't feed 10. Her daydreams had included allies, ghosts in the narrative, now flesh. Deal, she said, extending hand to Brady. Palms met, callus to callus, farmer's grip, soldier's resolve. Shifts start dusk. Monica rests, light duty, kitchen if she wants. Mike heals. Welcome to the homestead. Dusk bled purple over the hills as the group settled, packs stowed in the mudroom after final wipe down. The guest room upstairs, spare bed aired with lavender from the sachets Anna hung, went to Monica, its window overlooking the garden, a cradle of sorts in the quiet. Mike claimed the downstairs office couch, leg elevated on ottomans stuffed with wool from last year's shear. Jeb and Daniel bunked the loft, hammocks strung between rafters like they'd slung in barracks, while Brady took floor watch by the stairs, M4 disassembled for cleaning ritual. Anna led the tour post-meal, armory nook first, her pride, shelves of blades gleaming under LED strips, the twin curvy swords on hooks like crossed lovers, hilts notched for union. Primary for me, lock into one for reach. Cookery backup, chops clean. She drew the 9mm, racking the slide empty. Limited ammo, use blades first. Share if trusted. Brady whistled low, fingering a Tonto's edge. Impressive. We'll top off from town if it quiets. Hardware Depot's got .223. The root cellar next, stairs creaking underfoot into cool earth scent, shelves groaning with jars, pickled beets ruby as garnets, salsa verde from tomatillos gone wild, venison in brine. Freeze-dry station hummed in the corner, trays of strawberries furled like red sails, dehydrator whirring beside. 6 months baseline, Anna explained, tapping a ledger. Garden extends, zucchini bread, canned green beans. Cows for milk, meat if cull. Chickens, eggs daily. Jeb's eyes lit at the bounty, younger hunger surfacing. Beets MRE cheese spread. I cook, army chow, but edible. Upstairs bath, solar-heated water from the roof tanks, pressure-pumped manual if needed. Showers rationed. 5 minutes. Gray water to the garden. Night fell soft, fireflies winking beyond the wall like errant stars. Shifts kicked off, Brady and Daniel on the east tower, a platform Ann had built from scaffold poles, overlooking pasture and road. Jeb west, Mike excused to heal. Anna took inner patrol, sword sheathed across back, 9mm chambered. Jess monitored cameras with Monica, her teacher's poise emerging as she logged feeds, belly propped on a pillow. The first night passed in fits, distant howls that might be coyotes or worse, a biter's shambling silhouette caught on cam 6, dispatched quiet by Jeb's suppressed shot, crack muffled as a cough, body slumping into the ditch. Anna cleaned the rifle at dawn, oiling the bolt with a nod. Clean kill. Windage good. Routine seeded fast, a fragile normalcy in the chaos. Mornings, milking at first light, pails sloshing as Monica watched from the porch, learning the rhythm for post-baby. Cream for butter, she'd ask, hands folding a dish towel, home EC habits die hard. Anna nodded, separating in the kitchen, curdler bubbling for fresh mozzarella. Or cheesecloth way to the pigs, if we get him. Garden calls pulled her out, weeding kale rows with Jeb, his sniper's patience turning to soil turning, scythe mowing cover crop between beds. Loam here's rich, black earth from the glacier, she taught, handing him the hoe. Rotate corn next year, nitrogen fixers. Brady hauled water from the well crank when the pump stuttered, muscles coiling under his tea, while Daniel inventoried tools in the shed, hammers, wire cutters, the brick mold Anna used for the wall. Cement mix, he asked, eyeing the stacks. Town run soon. But we've got clay, fire it for repairs. Jess found footing in the watches, shotgun heavy but sure on the platform, Monica beside logging anomalies, a deer herd fleeing south, smoke plume from Bemidji's direction. Fire, he'd mutter. Or purge, she'd reply soft, hand on belly. Baby moved during your story, the western one, with the homesteaders. Laughter flickered then, rare as rain, Jeb's tales of grandfather's hunts, bowstring twang in November woods, Anna's dojo mishaps, a student once disarming himself mid-kata. Mike mended on the couch, leg scarred but straight, poring over her tablet, e-books on traps, snares, evasion. Your library's gold. Mind if I download a few? Sink away, she said. Knowledge hoarded rots. By week's end, the homestead pulsed with new rhythm, patrols overlapping Anna's blade drills in the yard, forms flowing, Ayajutsu draws, the sword's whisper cutting air. Brady joined, adapting rifle stances to her footwork, sweat bonding what words couldn't. Monica preserved jars of jam from the wild raspberries by the wall, labels penned in her neat script. "For the little one," she'd say, sealing with paraffin. But cracks showed, Jeb scouts returned grim, neighbor farms empty, doors ajar, blood arcs on porches. No bodies. Just gone. Daniel's silences deepened, nights pacing the loft, ghosts of wife and kids in every shadow. Monica's back ached, kicks turning to Braxton Hicks, false alarms, but Anna's checks grew frequent, Doppler a nightly right. The offer came casual, over breakfast burritos wrapped in garden tortillas. "That back property, for sale sign still up?" Jeb asked, forking eggs from the hens. "Remodeled. Empty. Solar-ready roof, from the drone peak." Anna paused, coffee mug halfway. The lot abutted theirs, 40 acres, creek run, listed pre-outbreak at a steal. Wall extension, brick molds in the shed. Cement from town, if we run. Brady leaned in. Space for all. Watches doubled, no crowding. Jess met her eyes, his nod subtle, the enabler's trust. Worth scouting. Alliance forged in stew and stitches, the homestead swelled, not just walls, but wills intertwined. But the road whispered threats, distant gunfire one dawn, a biter pack testing the gate at noon, repelled by overlapping fire, Jeb's scope, Anna's 9mm barking final. Supplies held, garden thrived under extra hands, but the world outside gnawed. How long till the horde or hunger knocked louder? 2 weeks in, the routine held like greenwood green. Kill the wanderers quiet, feed the beasts, milk and harvest, preserve for the unknown winter ahead. Peace, fragile as a soap bubble in July heat, but peace nonetheless. Until the scouts called town. The first full week after the group's arrival blurred into a tentative harmony, the homestead's rhythms expanding like the garden under a summer rain, accommodating new roots without uprooting the old. Dawn broke humid and golden on July 22nd, the sun cresting the tree-line to gild the dew-kissed grass in the east pasture, where Bess lowed a gentle reminder that milk waited for no apocalypse. Anna rose before the roosters, as always, her body clock tuned to the land's pulse rather than any alarm. The guest room upstairs now hummed with Monica's soft breathing, the pregnant woman's form a gentle hillock under the quilt, but Anna moved quiet on socked feet down the hall, braid swinging like a plumb line. In the kitchen, she fired the propane stove with a click and hiss, setting a pot of oats to simmer, rolled from last fall's grain, augmented with dried apples from the pantry. Coffee percolated beside, the rich aroma coiling through the house like an invitation to the day. Upstairs, the loft creaked as Jeb stirred, his hammock swaying faintly, Daniel already awake, shadowboxing silent forms in the dim light filtering through the gable window. Brady's spot by the stairs was empty. He'd taken the pre-dawn watch, a habit from deployments where night was just another enemy to outlast. Mike, leg bandaged fresh each morning, tested his weight on the office couch, grimacing through the twinge but refusing the crutch Anna had fashioned from a broom handle and duct tape. "Healing's half stubbornness," he'd grunt, flexing the calf under her watchful eye. By 6:15, the team assembled in the yard for shift brief, Brady descending from the east tower with binocs slung around his neck, Jeb rubbing sleep from his eyes as he shouldered his M4. Daniel nodded to Anna, his shooting instructor's poise evident in the way he checked his Glock's mag with thumb flicks. The towers, 2 platforms of lashed scaffold poles and plywood, one east overlooking the road and pasture, the other west toward the woods, had been Jess's weekend project last spring, now repurposed for overwatch. Ladders bolted to the wall's inner face allowed quiet ascent, with canvas blinds for concealment and sandbag lips for stability. "East clear overnight," Brady reported, voice low to avoid carrying. 2 biters at mile marker 3 shambled off toward the creek. West, deer track, fresh. No heat cigs. Anna nodded, handing out walkie-talkies. Baofeng's charged on the solar bank, channels preset to avoid bleed. Rotate at 10. Jeb East, Daniel West. Quiet kills only, blades if close, suppressed if not. Monica on monitors with Jess. Call pings. She passed suppressors from her kit, 9mm thread-ons for the Glocks, scavenged from a gun show 2 years back, and a pair of her throwing knives, balanced perfectly for Jeb's grip after a quick demo in the dirt. Curve M low, throat or knee drops M silent. The men dispersed like smoke, climbing to perches where the wall's height gave command of the horizon. From the east tower, the gravel road unspooled south like a pale ribbon, flanked by birch and pine that whispered secrets in the breeze. Brady glassed the tree lean, the binocs lenses fogging briefly in the humidity before clearing. Below, the pasture stretched 30 acres of fenced green, cows grazing oblivious, their tails flicking at flies. To the north, the wall butted against denser woods, a buffer of brambles Anna had planted for natural deterrence, blackberries now heavy with unripe fruit, thorns a mile long. West Tower mirrored it, canopy thick as a curtain, the creek's glint visible on clear days, but today haze softened edges. Daniel settled prone, bipod legs splayed on the platform, ACOG scope dialing in parallax. Jeb, lighter on his feet, took point with a suppressed M4, practicing dry fires on imagined targets, a squirrel too bold, a shadow too deep. Inside, Monica eased into the routine with the grace of someone who'd planned curricula around limitations. Her home economics classroom in Duluth had been a kingdom of aprons and algorithms, lesson plans for sourdough starters, budgeting for bulk buys, but pregnancy had sidelined her pre-outbreak, and now the Homestead became her adapted syllabus. Light duty, Anna had insisted, pressing a stool at the kitchen island. So Monica chopped zucchini for the dehydrator, her knife strokes precise as fractions, the summer squash slicing into uniform half-moons that went onto trays humming in the utility room. Laundry next, the group's fatigues and teas, scrubbed in the solar-heated washer Jess had plumbed to the gray water line, hung on lines strung across the back porch where the breeze carried lavender from the herb bed. "Smells like home," Monica murmured once, folding Brady's cap with care, the embroidered eagle staring back like a talisman. But her sharpest contribution was the monitors. Seated at the living room desk, a repurposed drafting table with a split-screen array, Monica logged feeds with a notebook and pen, her teacher's eye-catching anomalies Jess might miss, a flicker of movement in the infrared, a heat bloom that resolved to fox not fiend. Cam 2, 0842. Avian cluster, Turkey? East flank clear. Jess, beside her, nodded, his office-honed focus translating to camera sweeps, though his hands fidgeted with the radio more than the mouse. Homestead chores pulled him away midday, mucking the barn, hauling hay bales from the loft with a pitchfork that left splinters in his palms, but the monitors grounded him, a window to the world without the door. "Like air traffic control," he joked to Monica, earning her soft laugh, the sound a bomb in the house's deepening quiet. Anna, meanwhile, wove her days through the familiar warp and weft of the land, her chores a meditation against the encroaching unknown. The garden called first, after the men's shift stabilized, rows of tomatoes staking taller than her waist, vines heavy with fruit that warmed her palms as she culled the split skins for immediate sauce. Zucchini sprawled like green elephants' ears, demanding harvest lest they balloon to clubs. She filled a bushel basket by 9, the weight tugging at her shoulders as she lugged it to the kitchen. There, preservation took over, a water bath canner hissing on the stove, jars of marinara bubbling with basil and garlic she'd minced fresh, lids pinging their seals like victory bells. The dehydrator whirred constant now, trays rotating strawberries to leathery chips, kale to brittle shards destined for soups. "Stock for winter," she'd explained to whoever wandered in, Jeb on break, eyes lighting at the tart sample she pressed into his hand. 6 months of cold coming. Minnesota doesn't forgive lean seasons. Afternoons blurred into animal tending, milking in the barn's shade, where the air hung thick with hay dust and the cows' patient sighs. Anna's hands flew rhythmic, pails filling with foam-capped milk that she'd strain and culture for yogurt, the skim separating for cheese wheels pressed under weights in the cellar. Eggs came next, 12 today, warm in her basket as Luna nosed for fallen ones, the coop's wire rattling under Kodiak's watchful prowl. Feed scattered in clouds, chickens clucking their thanks, while the dogs patrolled the fence-line, ears pricked for the shambling footfalls that grew more frequent by week's end. Weapons became communal, Anna's arsenal a lending library of lethality. The men took turns with her blades during lulls, Brady adapting the cookery to his hunting style, the hook cleaving melons in the yard with wet thwacks that drew approving nods. Daniel, the instructor, drilled Jeb on her throwing knives, targets pinned to hay bales, thunk, thunk, steel quivering center mass. Mike, mobile by day 5, favored the twin swords' agility, practicing unions in the grass, hilts clicking seamless, the combined blade whistling arcs that parted air like silk. "Your balance, poetry in steel," he said once, handing them back sweat-slick. When infected wandered, lone shamblers drawn by some vestigial memory of life, the dispatches were surgical, Jeb's knife to the temple from the tower lip, silent as a sigh, Brady suppressed round through a scope, body crumpling unseen. No echoes to summon hordes, just draglines to the creek where currents claimed the evidence. The routine settled like silt after a flood, granting a fragile peace, a structure that imposed control on chaos. Days cycled, kill the strays at perimeter, feed the herd at dawn and dusk, milk and gather under the climbing sun. Harvest the garden's largesse, peppers fiery red, beans pod fat, and preserve the surplus in jars and bags, a bulwark against the frost that would bite come September, the deep freeze of January that could bury the world under 4 feet of white. Evenings gathered them around the table. Monica's stews thickened with garden roots, Jess's bread rising yeastier now with her tips, stories traded like currency. Daniel's quiet tales of recruit ranges, Jeb's Colorado dreams laced with worry for his girl, stranded, perhaps, in a world gone feral. Brady's hand on Monica's belly, feeling the kicks that synced to laughter, a heartbeat against the dark. It was this rhythm that freed Jeb for scouts, his youth and sniper's stealth making him the natural choice. Mornings after West Watch, when the heat hadn't yet peaked, he'd slip out the postern gate, a narrow sally port in the wall's north face, locked with a hasp Ana'd welded herself. Backpack light, water, jerky from the stores, her compact binoculars and a suppressed pistol borrowed from the rack. Farmhouses first, life signs, she'd brief, tracing maps on the kitchen table. Then salvage, tools, meds, seed packets if lucky. Back by 3, radio check every hour. His runs yielded ghosts at first, the Larson place 2 miles east, door yawning like a scream, kitchen chairs toppled but no blood, just flies buzzing empty. Scavenged a half case of nails, a propane torch head, small wins logged in Monica's ledger. The Svensson farm west fared worse, biters 3, dispatched with knife work that left his hand shaking, but a root cellar prize, sacks of onions sprouting pale, carrots buried deep. Like buried treasure, he'd report, dumping the haul on the porch, dirt crumbling under Anna's approving gaze. It was the 3rd run, July 28th, when the find landed. Jeb returned dust-streaked and grinning, backpack bulging with more than tubers, a real estate flyer, creased and sweat-stained, clutched in his fist. Back 40, yours, or close. Scout drone from the tower, empty, but solid. Remodel fresh, new roof, solar mounts pre-wired. For sale sign down, no tracks. Anna unfolded the flyer over lunch, the group crowding the table as Monica ladled potato soup from the garden spuds. The property abutted theirs to the north, 40 acres of meadow and woods, creek meandering through like a silver vein, the house a 2-story craftsman with wraparound porch and outbuildings, barn for expansion, shed for tools. Listed pre-outbreak at $240,000, move-in ready, with quartz counters and a root cellar dug deep. Owner bailed to Florida, the agent note read. Perfect for hobby farm. Room, Daniel said quiet, spoon pausing. No more hammocks. Watches spread thinner. Brady traced the boundary on the map overlay. Wall extension, line of sight north. Secure the gap. Anna's mind spun blueprints, her prepper's core igniting. Not hard. Bricks like mine, molds in the shed, clay from the creek bed. Mixed dirt 2-to-1 with cement, soil for bulk, binder for bite. Fire 'em in the kiln pit, propane torch, overnight. She sketched quick on a napkin, wall arc matching theirs, 15 feet high, glass shard crown. Gates twin to ours, electric wire base. 40 acres doubles pasture, garden space. Cows free range wider, chickens expand. Jess whistled low, eyeing the sketch. Cement haul? Town depot, bags stacked like cordwood last I saw. If empty, Mike added, legs steady now under the table. Run it. Flatbed from the neighbors, load heavy. Solar store across street, inverters, panels for the new roof. Monica smiled, hand on her swell. Nursery upstairs. Space for the crib, if we find one. The plan coalesced over the afternoon. Scouts pre-run the route tomorrow, Jeb and Daniel on recon. Anna prepped molds, wooden frames oiled, sand sieved fine, while Brady and Jess reinforced the postern for vehicle exit. Evening drills shifted, blade forms in the yard under fading light, the twin swords parting humid air, Jeb's throws sinking knives into straw dummies with meaty thuds. Peace deepened, laced with purpose, the routine not just survival, but building. But the world outside stirred. Jeb's next scout brought whispers, distant smoke from Bemidji, gunfire pops like erratic firecrackers. Biters clustered thicker, 5 dropped from the west tower in one shift, their moans a low dirge cut short by suppressed coughs. Monica's checks showed swelling ankles, salt intake up, elevation for the feet, but the baby thrashed lively, a fighter in utero. Daniel's ghosts lingered, nights murmuring to empty air, but the work dulled edges, teaching Jess sight alignment on the Glock, steadying his grip with calloused hands. By week's close, the homestead thrummed expanded. Kills tallied at 27, garden yield canned to 40 quarts, milk cultured to 5 wheels aging cool. Jeb's find hung like promise, the back 40 not just land, but legacy. Preservation ramped, dehydrators ran triple shift, jars sealing against the winter's maw, when snow would cloak the world and cold gnaw at bones. Routine held them, kill, feed, harvest, build, a scaffold of control in the unraveling. Peace, earned in sweat and steel, fragile but fierce. Yet the run loomed, town, with its temptations and teeth. Cement bags and solar dreams, but biters in the aisles, perhaps raiders in the lots. The group circled at evenings, maps marked, contingencies scripted from Anna's e-books. We go loaded, Brady said final, over venison kebabs grilled on the solar oven. In, out, no heroes. Anna nodded, swords at her back in spirit if not fact. The homestead, once 2 souls against the void, now a cadre, walls not just brick, but bonds. But Minnesota's summer waned subtle, nights cooling to cricket songs, leaves hinting yellow at edges. Winter whispered 6 months off, but closing. The run would test if peace was prelude or pause. August 5, 2025, dawned under a sky bruised with thunderheads, the kind of oppressive heat that clung to the skin like a second layer of regret. The homestead had held its breath through July's fevered peak, the routine a fragile dam against the flood of the unknown. But the back 40 called, its promise of expansion a siren song amid the growing press of bodies. 8 souls now, with Monica's belly swelling toward autumn's due date, the garden's yield straining the cellar shelves, and biters clustering thicker at the wall like moths to a dying flame. Jeb scouts had confirmed the route, the neighboring property's flatbed truck, a dusty Ford F-350 with a gooseneck hitch, keys dangling from the visor where the owner had fled or fallen. Town, Bemidji, 15 miles south, lay quiet on drone feeds, smoke plumes dissipated, but the ham radio crackled with warnings, hordes migrating from the cities, raiders probing the edges. The run was scripted tight, pulled from Anna's e-books like a battle plan from Sun Tzu, Three-man team for speed, suppressed weapons, no engagement unless cornered. Jeb, Mike, and Daniel drew straws, or rather, Brady's unyielding nod, for the op Jeb's youth and stealth for recon, Mike's healed leg and scout instincts for load detail, Daniel's instructor precision for overwatch and drive. In at dawn, out by noon, Anna briefed at the pre-dawn huddle in the yard, her voice cutting the mist like a blade's edge. The twin swords crossed her back in their sheaths, a talisman more than tool today, while her 9mm rode the hip, mag topped off from the dwindling stock. Cement first, hardware depot on Paul Bunyan Drive. Bags whole, no splits. Solar next door, panels, inverters, wire spools, priority if space. Walmart last, food and baby kit for Monica. Flatbed for bulk, semi if you find one. Radio every 15, abort on Horde SIG. Brady clasped forearms with his team, Monica's hand lingering on his elbow, her eyes bright with unspoken fear. "Bring back the future," she whispered to Daniel, who nodded stiff, the loss of his own family a ghost in his jaws clench. Jess cranked the postern gate wide, the chain rattling like bones, while Anna scanned the horizon from the east tower, binocs sweeping the road's empty curl. The flatbed rumbled to life under Daniel's key turn, diesel growl muffled by the exhaust wrap they'd rigged, Jeb and Mike in the bed amid sandbags for ballast. They rolled out single file, gate clanging shut behind, the homestead shrinking in the dust cloud like a dream deferred. The drive south was a gauntlet of ghosts, abandoned pickups nose down in ditches, their doors flung wide like screams frozen mid-note, a minivan accordioned against a birch, blood arcs feathered on the windshield but no bodies, just the stink of rot wafting through cracked vents. Jeb rode shotgun up top, M4 across knees, scope glassing flanks, biter sporadic, 3 dispatched with suppressed pops that echoed like coughs in the cab. "Clear to mile 8, he radioed, voice steady over the static. Mike, prone in the bed, picked off a shambler clawing from the tree lean, the .223 round punching clean through skull, body folding like wet cardboard. Daniel's hands whitened on the wheel, the instructor's calm a veneer over the wreck's memory, his wife's sedan crushed on I-94, kid seats empty when he arrived too late. "Eyes front," he muttered to himself, throttle steady at 45, gravel pinging under tires. Bemidji materialized like a corpse exhumed, Paul Bunyan Drive, the main drag, choked with the detritus of collapse. The depot, orange big box monolith, loomed first, parking lot a graveyard of shopping carts tangled with corpses, biters milling like cattle in the haze. No living heat on the truck's jury-rigged scanner, just the shambler's shambling herd, 20, maybe 30, drawn by the engine's rumble as Daniel nosed the flatbed to the loading dock. "Perimeter hot," Mike hissed into the walkie, bipod up on the tailgate. "Flank left, 10 inbound." "Suppressors on, blade secondary," Jeb replied, slinging out the passenger door, cookery borrowed from Anna's rack in hand. The fight erupted in staccato bursts, Mike's M4 chuffing from the bed, heads blooming red mist as biters lunged from between cars, their moans a guttural chorus rising over the cicada's silenced drone. Jeb darted low, knife work fluid, hook slicing hamstrings, follow-up thrusts to spines that dropped them twitching. Daniel covered from the cab, Glock barking through the open window, 3 down before the slide locked empty. The air thickened with cordite and decay, the heat amplifying the slaughterhouse reek as bodies piled at the tires. "Clear 20 seconds, dock now," Mike yelled, vaulting the tailgate to the concrete ramp. The depot's bay doors yawned half open, chains snapped, interior shadows alive with more groans. They breached fast, Jeb on point, flashlight beam cutting gloom, Daniel hauling a dolly from the vestibule. Shelves toppled in aisles like dominoes, but the back, oh, the back, was a jackpot untouched. Cement bags stacked pallet-high, 94-pounders of gray powder pristine in plastic wrap, Quikrete and mortar mix in equal measure. "All of it," Jeb grunted, forking slings under stacks, sweat sheening his brow as they wrestled the first pallet onto the flatbed's deck. Mike tarped half, bungee snapping tight, while Daniel forked another, muscles coiling from years of range hauls, the load groaning under weight. But the dead don't rest. A crash from the lumber aisle, a dozen biters tumbling from a collapsed rack, former stockboys in aprons shredded to rags, jaws unhinging in hunger. Jeb's M4 danced, 3 headshots, brass tinkling on tile, before a claw raked his sleeve, tearing denim but not flesh. He spun, kukri burying to the hilt in a throat, arterial spray painting his vest. Mike flanked right, pistol whip cracking skull before the bayonet thrust home, while Daniel's reload jammed mid-fight, forcing a desperate clubbing with the Glock's frame. The melee churned 5 minutes of frenzy, grunts and gurgles, boots slipping in viscera, the flatbed's engine idling like a heartbeat too fast. They loaded 8 pallets, 40 tons of binder, enough for walls eternal, plus windfalls, rebar bundles zip-tied for the bed, plywood sheets lashed atop, tool chests of hammers and trowels that clanked like promises. Hardware secured, Sola next. Daniel radioed, voice ragged, blood, biters, not theirs, smeared on his cheek. The store across the street, Solar Tech Solutions, gleamed mocking under the gathering clouds. Windows intact, lot empty save for a lone shambler pawing the glass like a lost dog. They rolled the flatbed diagonal, tires chewing asphalt, Mike topping off mags from a scavenged box of .223 found in the depot's office. Breach was surgical, Jeb's boot to the door's push bar, bell jingling absurd in the silence. Inside, fluorescent tubes flickered on backup batteries, aisles pristine, panels stacked racked by wattage, inverters humming in demo bays, coils of 10-gauge wire bundled like serpents. Priority, 200-watt monos, Outback inverters, MC4 connectors, Mike directed, reading from Anna's wish list scribbled on his arm. They worked feverish, Jeb climbing racks for the lightweight flex panels, 50-pound crates of 10 apiece, Daniel wheeling inverters, 3 kW beasts for the new roof, while Mike spooled wire, 500 feet of red and black, grounding kits and fuses tumbling into crates. The flatbed groaned fuller, tarp straining, but space held, barely, for the haul that could power the expanded homestead through blackouts eternal. Then the tide turned. A low rumble from the alley, not thunder, but hunger multiplied. 50 biters, perhaps more, spilling from the strip mall's guts, drawn by the shot's echoes, the engine's growl, a roiling mass of gray flesh and grasping hands, moans swelling to a roar that drowned the crickets. Horde, abort load, exfil now. Jeb barked, M4 emptying half mag into the front wave, bodies jackknifing but the press unrelenting. Mike fired from the bed, bipod rattling, but the flatbed's weight slowed turns, tires spinning slick on spilled guts. Daniel gunned it, plowing 3 under the bumper with meaty thuds, but the flankers swarmed the doors, fingers clawing at handles, faces pressing glass smeared with froth. Jeb vaulted to the roof rack, knife forgotten for the rifle, picking skulls in a frenzy, pop pop pop, brass raining like deadly hail. Mike climbed the cab side, bayonet flashing in arcs that severed limbs, but a biter latched his boot, teeth grinding leather before Daniel's reverse crushed it flat. The solar store receded in the mirror, horde thinning to stragglers as the truck barreled east, but the cost tallied. Jeb's arm gashed shallow, Mike's vest shredded, Daniel's mirror shattered and bloodied from a near-miss rake. Walmart, last stop, food run, Daniel panted, veering onto the access road, the lot sprawling empty under the Walmart Supercenter's faded smile. The big box was a husk, automatic doors wedged with a cart, fluorescence dead but daylight filtering through skylights to illuminate the half-ransacked aisles. Shelves picked like vulture feasts, cereal boxes gnawed, toilet paper long gone, but bounty lingered, canned beans in pyramids, bottled water cases stacked waist-high, ramen bricks and peanut butter jars a looter's oversight. Jeb and Mike swept interior first, flashlights stabbing shadows, dropping 2 biters in the grocery wing, nurse and cashier, decayed to leather and bone. Clear, load fast, Jeb radioed, forking pallets while Mike wheeled cases, the flatbed's bed now a mosaic of gray bags and black wire coils, space squeezed for the essentials. Out back, the jackpot gleamed, a Walmart semi, Peterbilt cab idling phantom on fumes, trailer doors ajar on a shipment undelivered, pallets of canned goods pristine, soups and veggies and fruits in syrup, enough to feed the homestead through 2 winters. Hook the flatbed, tow it, Daniel ordered, rigging the gooseneck to the trailer's tongue while Jeb and Mike wrestled doors wider, forking crates into the semi's maw. Beans, corn, tuna, cases stacked to the ceiling, tarped loose against shifts. Sweat poured, heat strokes edged sharpening breaths, but the haul mounted, 2,000 pounds easy, a larder on wheels. Daniel lingered in the baby aisle, the Rex echo quieted by purpose. Monica's due date loomed, October 12th, by her count, and Brady's boy needed more than hopes. Carts rattled as he loaded, diapers in bulk packs, stacks to the brim, onesies soft as clouds, sizes newborn to 24 months folded neat, a crib disassembled in box, oak slats promising sturdy nights. Toys next, rattles and blocks, soft books with crinkly pages, bottles sterilized in cases, formula powder in gallon tins, enough for 6 months' feeds. Wipes, lotions, a changing pad rolled underarm, everything the e-books promised for frontier births, piled high in 3 carts he wheeled to the door. The parking lot ambush hit as they consolidated, 8 biters from the tree lean, former shoppers in rot-stiff khakis, surging with guttural howls. Jeb's rifle chuffed centemass, but the lead took a round to the shoulder, barreling on till Mike's kukri parted its spine. Daniel fired from the hip, Glock emptying into the flank, carts toppling as he dodged a lunge, cans rolling underfoot like marbles. Jeb covered the semi, bayonet thrusting through the grill as one clawed the bumper. Mike dragged Daniel clear, knife flashing to sever a grasping wrist. The firefight peaked in chaos, brass casings skittering, moans cut to gurgles, the air acrid with gunpowder and gangrene. 8 down in 2 minutes, bodies heaped by the curb, but the horde's distant rumble echoed, more coming, drawn by the din. "Vehicles, scout the lot," Mike gasped, reloading with hands slick red. The flatbed and semi squatted heavy, trailers groaning under loads that left no room for extras. Jeb swept the perimeter, M4 sweeping arcs, spotting the prize, a Class C RV, Winnebago Mini Winnie, parked crooked by the garden center, door ajar but interior still. "Clear." Daniel called, "Carbine up." Jeb breached first, flashlight piercing gloom, cab empty, galley kitchen scattered with chip bags but no gore, bedroom bunk folded neat. 2 biters under the dinette, former retirees, jaws slack, dropped with knife thrusts to the eye sockets, Jeb's breath ragged but controlled. Ghost ship, full tank, keys in ignition. Daniel hotwired the starter anyway, wires sparking under his fingers from a tutorial memorized in the army. Vroom, the engine caught smooth, diesel purring low. Gauge needle swept full, 40 gallons, range for round trip and more. Baby haul loaded last, carts dumped into the RV's hold, crib box lashed to the bunk, formula tins stacked like ammunition. "For the kid," Daniel said, slamming the door, voice thick. Jeb clapped his shoulder, Mike nodding grim, the instructor's loss mirrored in every bundle, but redeemed in the giving. Exfil was a gauntlet renewed, the RV trailing the flatbed, semi-hitched tandem, convoy rumbling north as thunder cracked overhead, first fat drops splattering windshields. Biters dotted the highway shoulders, 20, 30, drawn by noise, but the trio's fire overlapped lethal, Jeb from the RV's roof hatch, Mike riding the flatbed's rail, Daniel sidearm barking from the lead cab. Rounds burned hot, suppressed coughs turning to open cracks as mags ran low, but the dead fell in windrows, tires churning over limbs like corduroy. A near miss at mile 10, a cluster of 15 blocking the bridge, forcing a plow-through that buckled the RV's fender, shamblers smearing the grill like roadkill paste. "Holding gates in sight," Jeb radioed, voice triumphant over static. Back at the homestead, Anna and Jess waited at the wall, postern cranked wide as the thunder rolled closer. Anna's swords gleamed in the flashes, 9mm drawn, dogs flanking with hackles mooned. The convoy breached in a roar of engines and rain, flatbed first, Daniel leaping cab to embrace the air, then semi-unhitched rolling to a halt, Jeb scrambling down grinning through blood and mud. Mike last from the RV, keying it silent as the gate swung shut behind. Clang final, locks bolting home. The yard erupted in relief, Brady hauling crates from the semi, Monica's gasp at the crib box, Jess unhitching with hands shaking joy. Anna inventoried fast, cement pallets stacked by the kiln pit, solar crates under tarp, cans tumbling like manna. Full load, miracle, she breathed, clasping Jeb's gash arm, binding it swift with gauze from her pouch. Daniel met her eyes, the baby bundles at his feet like offerings. For them. For us. Rain sheeted now, washing the grime, but the homestead stood taller, walls to build, power to harness, a future stalked against the storm. The climax crested not in death's roar, but survival's gasp. 3 vehicles, loads unbroken, souls intact. But the thunder rolled on, winter's shadow lengthening, and the world beyond the gate hungered still. September 12, 2025, marked 6 weeks since the town run, a milestone etched not in calendars but in the homestead's evolving scars and strengths. The back 40 had bloomed into reality under relentless labor, the wall extension rising like a sibling to the original, bricks molded and fired in batches that stained hands gray and lungs with clay dust. Jeb and Daniel had hauled the cement pallets from the flatbed's bed, mixing slurry in wheelbarrows under the relentless late summer sun, while Brady and Mike laid courses with trowels steady as their scopes, mortar joints tight, rebar spines threaded through for quake-proof bite. Anna oversaw the curve, her prepper's eye ensuring the 15-foot height mirrored the first, glass shards crowning the coping like frozen lightning. By week's end, the new gate swung on hinges salvaged from the remodel's barn, electric wire humming at its base, cameras wired fresh from the solar hall. The craftsman house stood primed, inverters purring on the roof, panels soaking photons to feed batteries buried in the root cellar's cool. Monica claimed the upstairs nursery, crib assembled by Jess's careful hands, oak slats sanded smooth, mobile of garden-forged stars dangling above. The expanded land breathed easier now, cows ranging the merged pastures, chickens scratching 40 acres of freedom, garden plots doubled with fall brassicas seeded under row covers, kale for winter's bite, carrots mulched deep. But peace, that elusive harvest, came laced with vigilance. The razor wire arrived courtesy of Jeb's scout into a barbed wire rancher's overrun spread, coils unspooled and crimped atop both walls, barbs glinting like teeth in the afternoon light, a deterrent that turned climbs to shredding descents. Biters tested it weekly, 3 last Tuesday, snagged mid-scramble, dispatched from the towers with arrows from Anna's new crossbow rack, bolts whispering finality. The routine had calcified, watches doubled on the expanded perimeter, harvests preserved in a rhythm that filled the new cellar to groaning, canned pears from the wild trees, jerky strips vacuum tight, solar-charged freezers humming with quartered beef from Daisy's late summer calf. Monica, belly a taut drum at 36 weeks, moved slower but surer, her home EC precision turning the kitchen into a canning factory. Jars of apple butter spiced with cinnamon from the co-op hoard, labels penned in her looping script. "For the boys," she'd say, hand on the swell where Brady's son somersaulted, kicks sinking to the dehydrators were. Anna adapted the inner defenses with quiet ferocity, decades of dojo discipline sharpening to a razor's poise. The armory nook expanded into the new house's hall, shelves for the men's rifles, hooks for her blades, but she drilled alone at dawn, twin swords unioned into the great blade, arcs cleaving air thick with dew, cookery spins that hooked shadows, footwork a dance of feints and strikes. The 9mm stayed chambered on her hip, dry fires against the barn wall, 400 rounds of finite scripture rationed to live drills. Jess, ever the enabler, manned the intercom upgrades, speakers wired to every tower, feeds synced to the monitors where Monica logged now with a ledger thick as a novel. The dogs grew warier, Kodiak's growl a barometer for threats beyond the wire, Luna shadowing Anna like a second blade. It was a Thursday dusk, the sun bleeding orange into the creek's bend, when the wanderers came. The west tower chime pinged first, motion on Cam 9, the new extension's flank, Brady's voice crackling over the walkie. Contacts, 6, no, 10. Heat sigs human, armed. Skirting the wire, probing weak spots. Mike, east tower rotation, confirmed, flanking north, women in tow, 3. Men leading, rifles slung casual. Raiders vibe. Anna bolted from the garden, dirt-caked trowel traded for the 9mm, mag seated with a click. The swords locked across her back, hilts notched seamless, kukri sheathed at her hip, its curve a promise of hooks and hacks. She reached the house as Jess sealed the inner doors, deadbolts thunking home, dogs herding Monica to the root cellar's nook, her protest soft but firm, "I can watch the feeds." Upstairs, the nursery's window overlooked the front gate, but Anna waved her down. Inner defense was hers alone, a web of tripwires and choke points she'd laced through the halls. "Stay low, baby first." The group materialized on the front cam feed, 10 figures in ragged caravan, men hulking in leather vests patched with gang sigils, skulls and chains, faded but fierce, women trailing like afterthoughts, faces bruised under tangled hair, packs light but eyes hollow. They fanned at the gate, 2 men boosting a third to test the razor crown. He dropped cursing, arms lacerated red, the wires by drawing first blood. No climb, smart or cautious, but the probe circled to the front, boots crunching gravel as they huddled by the wrought iron bars, voices carrying faint on the mics. Jess keyed the intercom from the living room console, speaker crackling live, "This is private land. State your business, quick." Laughter barked back, the leader, a bull-necked brute with a scar-split lip, stepping bold, AR slung low. "Business. Got food smells waftin' like a damn buffet. Women too, from the wash lines. Open up, share the wealth, or we make ya." The feed caught the whispers, one man leering at the third woman, a shove that made her stumble, crude jokes traded low, laced with threats that curdled the air. Anna, poised in the hall with swords drawn half, felt the bile rise, not fear, but the cold calculus of predators. Monica's intake hissed from the cellar feed, "Hostages. Look at the bruises." The men knew it too, Brady's voice tight on the private channel, "Women clean, no guns. Spares if it goes." Jess's face hardened, the office softy forged in fire these months. "We've got 4 snipers zeroed on you. And your scout in the sumac. Drop the rifle, hands up. Nothing here for you. Walk away, or we drop you." More laughter, rifles levered skyward, 3 cracking shots into the dusk, muzzle flashes strobing the cam. "Snipers. Bullshit, old man. We take what we want, food, holes, all of it. Send out the skirts first. We'll play nice." The group jeered, the leader hawking spit at the gate, women shrinking back, one covering her ears as the echoes rolled. Anna's grip tightened on the hilts, blades humming faint in her palms, the union lock clicking soft, a whisper of readiness. Kodiak paced at her feet, Luna's whine a counterpoint. Upstairs, Jeb and Daniel moved ghost-quiet from the loft, rifle shouldered, Jeb to the east tower's blind, prone with the M4's bipod kissing sandbags. Daniel west, ACOG dialed for the leader's scarred dome. Brady and Mike held positions, scopes married to vitals, center mass for the armed, offsets for the coerced. Jess leaned into the mic, voice steady as the wall. "D, warning shot." The crack split the air, Daniel's .308, unsuppressed for the message, bullet splintering brick inches from the leader's ear, shards peppering his cheek red. He yelped, ducking, the jeers dying like choked flames. Silence stretched, broken only by the creek's murmur and a woman's sob. The leader touched bloodied fingers to his lobe, eyes wild. "You shot." One of his flankers moved then, circling left to the gate's hinge side, rifle up, 3 rounds spitting wild into the house's facade. The first starred the bulletproof glass of the living room window, spiderweb cracks blooming but holding, the pane a shield of polycarbonate laminate Anna had layered herself. 2 more punched the siding, lead mushrooms flattening on the reinforced frame, wood splintering but structure unbreached. Alarms wailed internal, motion sensors tripping, but the dog stayed planted, trained to hold. The other 2 men joined the fire, ARs chattering bursts toward the towers and house, tracers arcing lazy in the gloaming. Bullets whined off the wall's brick, ricocheting into the pasture where cows lowed alarm. One grazed the east tower's blind, canvas shredding but Brady unmoved, breath held on the trigger. Jess's voice boomed again, calm thunder. "Safety's off." The response was symphony of death. 4 rifles speaking as one, suppressed coughs from east and west blending with the open roars of warning's echo. Brady's first round took the flank shooter center chest, exiting in red spray that painted the gate crimson. He crumpled clutching the AR, gurgling wet. Mike followed, double-tapped to a second gunman mid-reload, skull blooming backward as he spun into the gravel. Jeb's M4 stitched the leader's legs, knees shattering in pink mist, dropping him wailing, rifle clattering free. Daniel, precise as his range days, winged the third shooter in the shoulder, spinning him into the dirt where he crawled moaning, ignored for the moment. The exchange raged 5 minutes of hellish ballet, raiders fire sporadic now, panicked sprays that chewed the wall's base and starred more glass, but the sniper's volleys were surgical, headshots where morals allowed, limbs for the desperate. Bullets zipped both ways, the air acrid with powder and blood iron. A stray round clipped the intercom box, speaker fuzzing to static, but Jess switched to backup, voice cutting through, "Last chance, drop him." 7 men lay still when the guns fell silent, sprawled at the gate in tangles of limbs and leaking vitals, ARs cooling in pools that soaked the gravel red. The leader twitched final, eyes glazing as Jeb's finisher punched his temple clean. Smoke wisped from barrels, the Homestead's towers silent sentinels, scopes cooling in the sniper's grips. The 3 women huddled by the wall's foot, knees drawn tight, faces buried in skirts. No shots from them, no threats, just the wide-eyed terror of bystanders caught in the storm. The men had marked it early. No holsters on their hips, hands empty even in the chaos, bodies curled protective rather than aggressive. Hostages, plain, coerced shadows in the raiders' wake, spared by the scope's mercy. Anna moved then, sword sheathed but 9mm drawn low, emerging from the house with dogs flanking like armored knights. Jess cracked the gate partial, chained through the bars, just enough for passage, his shotgun cradled easy. "Clear," Brady radioed from above, rifle sweeping the bodies. The women flinched at the creak, but Anna's voice carried soft, "Easy. It's over. Come in, slow." They rose trembling, steps hesitant over the carnage, eyes darting to the towers where shadows held rifles steady. The eldest, mid-40s with gray-streaked braids, clutched a younger's hand, sisters, maybe, or survivors bonded in chains. The third, barely 20, wiped tears with a sleeve torn at the cuff. No words at first, just the shuffle across the threshold, gate clanging shut behind. Inside, the homestead enveloped them. Kitchen first, Monica rising from the cellar with water pitchers and towels, her swell no hindrance to the maternal pull. "Sit, breathe," she urged, pressing glasses into shaking hands, electrolyte mix cutting the shock. Showers next, the solar tank's bounty running hot as Anna stood guard outside the bath door, cookery loose in her belt. Clothes from the Walmart haul, tees and jeans in fresh sizes, soft as new snow, folded on the vanity, with Monica's sewn patches waiting for hems. Over stew, venison chunks in tomato gravy from the preserved haul, the story spilled halting. The women, scavengers from a Duluth enclave overrun 2 months back, snared by the gang on the road north. "Cook, clean, or worse," the eldest murmured, spoon trembling. "Tried running once, branded." She tugged her collar, revealing a scar like a crude H. No fight left, just endurance etched in hollow cheeks. The night deepened with watches redoubled, Jeb and Mike sweeping the perimeter for stragglers, Daniel cleaning rifles by lamplight, Brady at Monica's side, hand on her belly as if to shield the unborn from echoes. Anna sparred the tension in the yard, blades unioned in slow katas that parted fireflies, the greatsword's weight a counter to the adrenaline crash. Jess logged the feed. 7 dead, 3 saved, ammo burned at 60 rounds. "We held," he said later, arm around her on the porch, stars pricking the clearing sky. "Your walls, our scopes." By dawn, the women slept in the new house's spare rooms, beds aired with lavender, doors latched but unlocked. Breakfast brought color back, eggs scrambled with garden chives, bread toasted on the solar griddle. Gratitude flickered in small gestures, a mending needle for Anna's glove tear, a hummed lullaby for Monica's kicks. But the road called. 4 days of rest knit wounds, but eyes turned north, toward whispers of a holdout camp by the Canadian line. On the fourth morning, September 16th, they gathered at the gate, packs stuffed with cans from the semi's horde, water bottles topped, a road map inked with safe routes from Jeb scouts. Daniel approached quiet, Kieran jangling, the RV, fueled fresh from the cistern's diesel cache, idling by the barn. "Safer than feet," he said, pressing the fob into the eldest's palm. "Full tank, bunks for 3. Take it." Tears welled, but nods firm, hugs exchanged, Monica's lingering longest, belly to belly in silent sisterhood. "Find good ground," Anna said, clasping wrists. "And radio if you catch signal, Channel 9. The RV rumbled out, gate parting like a reluctant farewell, taillights fading down the gravel scar. The homestead exhaled, quieter now but unscarred, walls unbreached, bonds tempered in fire. Routine reclaimed the day, milking under a sky turning crisp, garden pulls of late tomatoes sauced for winter, towers scanning horizons clear. The razor wire glinted warning, snipers' nests vigilant, but the air lightened, the creeks song a lullaby against the world's grind. For now, the drama ebbed, 7 graves dug shallow in the woods, 3 lives seeded elsewhere. The group fell back into stride, kills tallied low, preserves stacking high, Monica's due date a beacon 2 moons off. Anna sharpened blades by the fire pit that night, Jess at her side with tea steaming herbal. "We built this," she murmured, great sword gleaming in the flames. "And we'll hold it," he replied, hand finding hers. The dogs curled close, stars wheeling overhead. Peace, hard won in blood and brick, settled like dew on the leaves, fragile but rooted deep. September 20th, 2025, dawned crisp under a sky veined with the first hints of autumn's gold, 4 days after the gate's gravel had drunk deep of raiders' blood and the homestead's walls echoed with the finality of snipers' fire. The air carried the sharp tang of wood smoke from the kitchen stove, where Monica stirred a pot of oatmeal laced with the last of the summer's dried blueberries. Her movements measured, one hand often drifting to the swell of her belly, now taut at 39 weeks, the baby a lively drumbeat against her ribs. The shootout's residue lingered subtle, faint scorch marks on the siding from stray rounds, the razor wire atop the walls crusted with a patina of frost-kissed dew, and the shallow graves in the north woods, mounded earth blanketed with fallen leaves to speed the return to soil. But the homestead breathed steady again, its routine a quiet reclamation, milking at dawn, garden pulls of frost-nipped kale preserved in the dehydrator's hum, tower watches scanning horizons that yielded only the occasional shambler, dispatched with arrows or quiet knives. The 3 women, pulled from the fray like thorns from flesh, had woven tentatively into those 4 days, their presence a soft counterpoint to the violence that birthed it. Ilara, the eldest with gray-streaked braids and eyes that held Duluth's ruins like a map, had taken to the kitchen's rhythms first, her hands, scarred from scavenged fires, chopping onions for Monica's stews with a precision born of necessity. Mira, the youngest at 22, shadowed Anna in the yard, learning the cookery's balance during slow drills, her tentative swings gaining surety as the blade's curve whispered through air still thick with summer's fade. Lena, the middle with a healer's quiet grace, mended socks by the wood stove, her needle flashing stories of lost kin in every stitch, whispers shared over tea of a pre-outbreak life as a nurse in the cities, now reduced to salves from Anna's stores for the bruises blooming purple on wrists and collarbones. Showers had come that first night, the solar tank's heat a luxury that steamed the bathroom's glass and washed away the road's grime, replaced by fresh tees and jeans from the Walmart hall, soft against skin long abraded. Meals anchored them, venison hash with garden carrots the first evening, eggs scrambled with chives the next, each bite a bridge from terror to tentative trust. Sleep claimed the new house's spares, beds aired with lavender sachets, doors latched but unlocked, the creek's murmur outside a lullaby against nightmares. Daniel had lingered longest with them, his instructor's poise cracking into shared silences by the fire pit, tales of ranges and recruits traded for their escapes, his loss a mirror to theirs, softened by the purpose of the baby bundles he'd scavenged, diapers folded neat in a drawer, a rattle tucked into Lena's pack like a talisman. By the 4th dawn, resolve had kindled in their eyes. The roads pull stronger than the wall's embrace, north toward rumors of a holdout by the border, where ham radios crackled with promises of community. They gathered at the front gate as the mist burned off the pasture, packs bulging with bounty from the semi's hoard, canned soups and tuna tins, water bottles topped from the well, jerky strips vacuum-sealed tight. Ilara shouldered hers first, the weight lighter than the chains they'd shed. "You've given roots," she said to Anna, clasping forearms callus to callus. "We'll seed them elsewhere." Monica embraced Mira last, belly to chest, the unborn kicking as if in farewell. "Safe travels, find green ground." Brady nodded from the porch, hand on his wife's back, while Jeb and Mike flanked the gate, rifles slung but scopes empty. Daniel approached then, Kieran glinting in the low sun, the RV, fueled fresh from the cistern's diesel cache, idling by the barn with its engine a low purr. "Safer than Shank's mare," he said, pressing the fob into Ilara's palm. "Bunks for 3, full tank, range for the line. Take it." Tears brimmed but didn't fall. Hugs rippled through the group. Lena's to Jess, a murmured thanks for the steady pour of tea, Myra's to the dogs, who nosed her hands with wet snuffs. "Channel 9 if signal catches," Anna added, voice firm as the wall behind her. "You're not ghosts. Check in." The gate swung wide on oiled hinges, the RV rumbling through in a gravel crunch, tail lights winking red as it crested the rise and vanished down the road serpentine scar. The Homestead exhaled, the chains rattle sealing quiet once more. Routine reclaimed the morning, Anna to the barn for milking, pails sloshing with cream for the next wheel of cheese, Jess to the monitors, logging the feed's empty scroll, the men to towers, scopes sweeping clear skies. By midday, the yard pulsed familiar, kale harvested under row covers, chicken scratching frost from the run, Monica's laughter light as she folded the women's left-behind scarf into the linen drawer. The drama ebbed like a receding tide, leaving the shore reshaped but standing, walls unbreached, bonds tempered finer, winter's approach a distant rumble 6 months off. Anna paused at the gate's inward view, swords crossed on her back like a vow, the creek's song threading the air. For now, the quiet held, until the next shadow stirred. But in that pause, they thrived, preppers turned family, blades and bullets guardians of the green.